go ahead and start the recording again. Just realized that I had it off. So let's go ahead. We've welcomed new people. If I missed anybody, please let me know. Just send me a chat and I will be sure and make sure that I introduce you. And be sure and put your community name or what organization you're from in the chat so people can get to know you better. If you haven't done that with your name, I noticed some of you have done it with your name, which is great. Let me see, what else did I want to say? Announcements. Let me just start out with saying that you should have received information in the announcement about this meeting about SMEs, that we're looking for subject matter experts. Please, I will put that link in the chat right now and ask that you please send that out to your community and invite people to participate in the survey. Blah, 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 blah. Come on, give me the info I'm looking for. I will do that in a second. All right. And let me see, any other announcements other folks have?
I guess I could take 30 seconds and let everyone know we're, thanks to the fiscal sponsorship of Northern Sonoma County COPE, Mill Creek is going forward with this week with a couple different fuel break contracts up in the Mill Creek area. And we can share some draft requests for proposal and templates for those of you looking to apply for fuel break funding. It's kind of a pilot project. And I can answer any questions offline individually to anybody that's looking into that. Thanks to Priscilla and Jeffrey and everyone at Northern Sonoma County COPE and Marshall in helping to get those funds from the PG&E Vegetation Management Grant.
Actually, that one's from the county, right?
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah. So thank you, Dan Grout, for the tremendous amount of work that you've put in to make that happen. And yes, one of the things that we have asked Dan to do is help us develop templates so that in the future, moving forward, as we get fuels management grants, vegetation management, whatever words make sense to you, as we get those grants, we want to be able to implement them quickly and be prepared with the right contract language and RFP language and all of this, homeowner contract forms, all of that. So we've been trying to put templates together so that in the future the process goes more smoothly, and we are utilizing, Dan's got extraordinary skills in this area. And so we've been able to utilize his skills, and he's just super organized and has put together a tremendous amount of work. So just know that as an organization, COPE Northern Sonoma County has all of this wonderful, these templates now and this kind of package of work that we've done. So thank you again, Dan. And it's exciting to see that work's actually going to start being implemented in the next couple of weeks. So great. Well deserving. So let me see. I think that either Diane or Rebecca may want to talk about the job positions and the fact that we have some job descriptions ready to go forth as we're looking for 2 contractor positions. Diane, did you want to do that, or Rebecca? Which
I'm happy to step in here, and Rebecca, please add. We through the Center for Disaster Philanthropy, we received $100,000, $75,000 of which are going to go to people to help us in some areas where we're lacking manpower. The other 25,000 is actually going to go to help sort of underserved populations with some fuel management. as I understand it. But anyway, so 2 areas. So that we have an RFP for a grant manager. So that's someone to do grant administration and also grant writing for us. I think we have 5 grants that are currently in-house, and it takes a lot. I mean, Dan's doing it for us for Mill Creek, and then we have all these others, and there's a lot of, you know, they're at the step now where they're doing the RFPs, so putting out, you know, trying to get expertise in, then we have to track it. There's reporting that goes on. You have to photograph before and after, and there are a lot of time frame sort of scheduling, you know, timelines that we need to adhere to. So we have an RFP that's been developed for grant management, and Priscilla, it'd be great if we could share it with the group. If anybody knows anyone who does that kind of activity for another nonprofit, that would be terrific. This is work that needs to be completed between now and May of next year. And that's what I have to say. There's an IT position. I don't know if Rebecca is Rebecca here. Yes.
I don't think she's here.
Okay. Anyway, there's I think we're very close in that. I don't know if Priscilla, you have to tell me, do we have the final RFP for that position? But it's someone to help us get up on Google Workspace, and as well as doing communications, right? To, you know, to help us with our website, and to be more proactive in our social media, and really to help us generally with outreach.
So I just dropped those 2 in the chat. So please get these out there. If you know people that do this work, or people that might know somebody that does that work, please get it out there, because we really want to hire soon. And these are contractor positions, so people, you know, are able to work from home and control their time, right? They just have deliverables and a timeline for those. So they're actually, I think, going to be fun jobs and good jobs for folks that are interested and have the skills in those areas. So please share those. All right, thank you, Diane. Let me see. I think that's all the update that we need to do on the grants. I wanted folks to know that I did put together a protocol for patrolling if people are interested in that, and I'll drop that in the chat as well. Where that all came from was when we started having these fire events that were thought to be arson. We're kind of assuming that that's what was going on, but I don't know that that's that the investigations are complete at this time, nor do we know whether that was the case for sure. Marshall will chime in, I'm sure, and give us any updates. But I just, you know, our community was like, wow, you know, we need to mobilize. So there were a half a dozen of us that started patrolling. And we were at either end of Fitch Mountain Road and also patrolling just to keep track of what was going on. We also, some of us did a little bit of work that night at the Lightning. And so it really showed us that there are times when we are really high risk for events to happen, and we can mobilize a small group of us to start doing some of these patrols or keeping an eye out for fires or flood or whatever we're concerned about. There's a lot of different dangers that we all have in our various areas. So I put together a protocol, just like we have a red flag protocol. I put together a patrolling protocol, got input from our fire service folks as well as our law enforcement. I'm still waiting to hear from the city of Healdsburg chief of police, but otherwise I've heard from the sheriff's department, and I've heard from Marshall as well. So I feel like I've gotten some good input and some good support for us to do it. But I think that if you bring this back to your communities, just be really clear about what the role is, and that it's really simply observation. It is not confronting anyone. It's not really doing anything, but getting information to the proper authorities and, you know, letting your community know about any dangers that are happening. And it's just really early identification. Again, just another preparedness task. This is not a neighborhood watch official program or anything like that. You could certainly do that if you wanted to, but this is just a limited kind of another activity for COPE volunteers. So I will drop that in the chat in a couple minutes here. I'm wondering if anybody else has any announcements, especially our folks from our organizations, from anybody from Nancy, anything going on with you, with the county that we should know about, or Sonoma County Fire, Jim's here. Anybody else that has any news and updates for us? Chief Turbeville.
Yeah, I can talk for a minute. The PG&E funded grant for Franz Valley Road, that work's been completed as of last Friday. And then, I don't know, I'm gonna September 6th, unusual occurrences of fires that we mentioned. But overall, I think everyone's been doing a great job because the ignitions are down, in my opinion, summer. I know we had that fluke Monday night, but all in all, the ignitions are down. I know there's talk about fire prevention working on some, advertising about mowing don't cause fires, but all in all, the northern Sonoma County and greater area of Sonoma County has done a great job. And so, we can't pinpoint that. I think a lot of that is related to the work that all of you are doing. And so, posting red flags today, just getting the word out is all helping to stop ignitions. We don't have ignitions, we don't have fires.
Great. I think we lost Marshall. But what a great message. We always like to hear that what we're doing is effective, right? That we're making a difference in what we're doing. And I think that's part of what he was trying to let us know. So that's really great.
I'm back, absolutely. And then I hate to say it, but there might be another event this Thursday. So we're in that season. Try not to wear people out, but we just need to keep being safe. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Marshall. All right. All right, that's all I have for announcements. And I will pass it off to Dr. Brown, who's going to give us our tip of the month.
Thank you very much, Priscilla. And I certainly echo what Marshall said. All the work that everybody's doing in their neighborhoods throughout the county makes a big difference now, and will make a big difference should we end up having any type of incident, because we're heads and shoulders above where we were many years ago, and certainly even where we were last year. So it's just, it's an amazing process to work. And I'm sure the envy of people all over the nation who would love to see people really get together and do the kind of work that you guys are doing. So yay for you. Anyway, so it is National Preparedness Month, which does not mean that much to our community because this is something we do every month. So unlike places in other parts of the country where they haven't even talked about preparedness since last year, it's a really big deal for them. But certainly it's a great time for us to go ahead and review our basic tenets, which are stay informed, build a kit, make a plan. And these are all really important. I do have a couple of ideas to share with you of ways to maybe start new conversations, because you've probably already told everybody to make a kit and have a plan and stay informed. So what are some other things you can do? So a couple of ideas that I have for you. First of all is consider having an Eat Your Old Supplies event, and you guys can meet in a park and eat the supplies from your old kit so you can renew your new kit. It gives you an opportunity to taste what some of those funny things in your kit taste like, and to get together with other people and see what's in there and what other people are doing. So, if you happen to have the can of soup, you're going to feel a lot luckier than the guy with the nutrition bar, but it is an opportunity to get together and do something a little different. The other idea I have for you is to, and we did actually this last Saturday in a library presentation, is have different members of your group get together and take a deep dive on investigating things. So some of the things we investigated last weekend at the library presentation were the types of food you can have in your go bag, the types of water you can have in your go bag. People were interested in what types of first aid kits. So maybe a member or two of your group would be willing to investigate and report that information back and give everybody an opportunity to get a little education as they're making choices, especially after their refresh, as they get ready to refresh their bags. the last thing I wanted to talk about is, and I'll put this in the chat for your convenience to sign up, but we do have an event coming up on Saturday that you and your neighbors may be interested in, and that is Carl Leone is going to be doing a home hardening event via the web with at the Sonoma County Library presentation. So it'll be a 1-hour home hardening, and she'll also be answering questions. So especially if you have neighbors new to the idea of defensible space and home hardening, it'd be a great opportunity for them to get a 1-hour primer from Carol Leone, who, as you all know, is the master of discussing these things. We also have the following week on a Wednesday coming up with the library, an opportunity for you to view a movie called Wilder and Wilder, and it's a intersection of how to steward the land with what climate change is doing to fire risk. It's a very interesting 1-hour video, and then after the screening of that, there'll be a Q&A. Marshall will be on that team with the Q&A, as well as Sam Wallace and the actual makers of the film. So there'll be an opportunity to really discuss as a community some of the concepts brought forth in the film itself. So I think it'd be really interesting and a little bit more entertaining than some things. So I'm going to put both of that information in the chat for you, and I send it back to you, Priscilla.
Great, thank you, Nancy. And I'll just say I've seen the film before, and it is a really good film, and it's a great conversational piece. So if you get people in your communities to view it, I think it'd be great, and a great way to bring people together and talk about what needs to happen in your area, because all of our areas are unique. Jeff, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, just everybody know we have a new COPE group forming north of the First Street Bridge in Cloverdale, but south of Pine Mountain. So it's sort of in between. And they're deciding whether they're going to be an independent COPE group or they're going to join the ASTI group. And so we're meeting next week. They've gone to some of the introductory material, but not as much as they would like to. So they're going to be doing office hours and other things like that. But they have a 4 people that are already committed to participating in the leadership way. So I think they're going to actually put something together.
Great,
That's
thank
it.
you. Thank you. I think those folks are signed up for our office hours tomorrow, actually. Yeah, great, thank you. All right, I am looking for Steve Masterchik. I can say it, I know I can, but I don't see him here yet.
I'll text him real quick.
Thank you. I sent him an email this morning with the link, Marshall, if you want to let him know. Easy get on. Let's see how that goes. Anybody else have any burning questions or announcements?
I just have kind of a minor question. I was trying to find out where these recordings are cached so I could watch last month's that I missed. Are those?
Those are sent out. I usually send those out the week or 2 after the meeting with a link to the recording. So if you go through your MailChimp newsletters, that should be in there. If not, just ping me with which date you want. Alternatively, for those of you that may not know this, all those MailChimps are cached on the COPE Northern Sonoma County website on the getting started page. If you look down, you'll see a link and it'll take you to all the previous newsletters. And so you can find minutes and information about the recordings, the links to the recordings, and whatever else I have given you information about. As you know, there's a lot happening. We're trying to stay on top of a lot of stuff. All right. Why don't I just give you a bit of an introduction to what we're going to do this afternoon. So we have had an ongoing group of folks meeting to talk about what we can do to reach our older adults. And we have a tremendous amount of knowledge and experience, fortunately, within our communities. So we've got Donna Schaefer is a gerontologist. Did you all know that? I mean, so wealth of knowledge right there. We've got Nancy, of course, who's just, her depth of knowledge in emergency preparedness is fantastic. So put those two together and you get yourself a great program. And Diana Borges has added to that. Diane Urban has added to that, and various others who have an interest in working with seniors. So we've been meeting regularly and put together what we hope is a train the trainer program, where we can help you understand some of the issues in reaching to some of our older adults, and then be able to pass that on to your community, to your neighborhood leaders in your community, and then they can pass that on to their residents and feel better about reaching out to some of our older folks that are in our elders and our communities. And one of the fun ways that we did that was that each one of us came up with a case, who's somebody in their community or in their lives that really needs special help and has some special needs, and you guys are all going to help us problem solve how to work with those folks. So we thought that would be a fun way for us to be thinking about, again, reaching some of our older adults. And Susie Cummings, you're going to have a riot with that one, right? I just know some of you live in communities where, there's a lot of older adults that we need to reach. So that's what we've been up to. All right. And I'm not hearing anything. And I'm wondering, Marshall, you have any updates, or should I just go ahead and start the senior thing?
I'm not back from Steve, so I can start the senior thing.
Okay, will do. We'll try to get Fire Marshal Masurchik here for another time. All right. Why don't I turn this over to Nancy and to Donna? And do you guys already have your PowerPoints ready, or did you want me to do that, or what works for you? Oh, Nancy's just all right. All right.
Okay, I think we're ready. And Donna is actually going to start out, and I'm going to move the slides forward by her command.
Okay. Well, let me just reiterate what Priscilla said earlier. There has been a group of us working on this, and so I really want to give a shout out to Priscilla, of course, and Diana Borges and Diana Urban, as well as Nancy for the presentation. And we hope you find this informative, right? So, okay, Nancy, let's go to the next one here. So we thought it would be a good idea to start with a little bit of context. The older adult population, as I'm sure you may be aware, is really quite diverse. And it's diverse regarding socioeconomic status, education, ethnicity, culture, race, living arrangements, and so on, among many other characteristics. And obviously, in this presentation, we're not able to deal with all of the variety that exists. So what we're going to do is we're going to offer basically some generalizations, right? Acknowledging that we may be missing some of the texture and the character that characterizes this population. Specifically, we're going to focus on older people living independently rather than in congregate settings or multi-generational households. Right, Nancy. So older people are more vulnerable in emergencies. It's not that age itself per se alone makes older people more vulnerable. However, there are some limitations that are more common in older adulthood that can pose problems for people. Mobility impairments can make evacuations difficult. Hearing impairments can make it hard to hear warnings and to get information about emergencies. Social isolation can make it hard to ask for help or to be visible sometimes to first responders. Power outages can affect medical devices. Sometimes cognitive impairments can make the planning and evacuation processes more challenging. And the disruption of support services that people depend on can also make more complex emergency situations. Okay, Nancy. So we want to add to this the fact that older people tend not to be prepared for emergencies. When I started getting into this, I saw that older people are not prepared, but I thought, well, I'm not sure this is entirely different from, most people in the population. But suffice to say, results from national surveys of older adults has shown that less than a third had an emergency evacuation plan. Less than a third had participated in disaster preparation training or a program of any sort. And in some ways, surprisingly, less than a third even knew how to turn off their gas. Only a quarter knew of a program or organization that helps people prepare for or handle disasters. And more than a third didn't have a basic supply of food, water, or medication in case of an emergency. Nancy? However, older people do have resources that can be tapped for preparedness in emergency situations. Okay. Again, results of national surveys have indicated that over 90% of older adults had a car, and of those without a car, 70% could get transportation in an emergency. 75% of adults over 65 years live within 30 miles or less of an adult child or other relative. We tend to think sometimes of older people as being, geographically or physically isolated, but in fact, most older people live within a reasonable distance of a relative or adult child. Over 90% had someone living within a 50-mile radius who could provide shelter in an emergency. These are obviously all significant resources, but the most important resource of all is an older person's resilience and a lifetime of experience in solving and coping with problems. And I like to say and think that people don't get to be old who are clueless, careless, helpless, and oblivious to the challenges in their environments. Okay, Nancy? So older people should certainly be engaged as partners in the preparedness process. Older people have agency. It's important not to plan for older people, but rather to help and guide them in planning for themselves. There can be a planning team that includes the older person, family members, neighbors, caregivers, other professionals. But it's important that the older person is, if you want to think of it this way, that the older person is the captain of the planning team. So essentially they need to be in charge of this process. And that's important because in the final analysis, when an emergency happens, the older person has to be invested in the plan, know what it is, and know how to execute it. And that's ultimately going to be the older person's responsibility. Nancy? So communicating effectively with older people in many ways is pretty much like effective communication with anyone. You want to engage in an interactive, respectful, reciprocal exchange. We need to make sure we avoid patronizing language or endearments. Many older people, and I am one here, I do not like to be called honey, dear, darling, and such things. I suspect that's true of many of you. It's important to speak clearly and directly and to make eye contact. If a person does have some hearing impairment, then being able to look at you when you're talking is important. And that's something that we've learned, unfortunately, about the pandemic with ubiquitous masks, is that it is often more difficult for those with hearing impairments to be able to communicate as they once did. Don't speak particularly loudly or slowly. That can simply be annoying, and it's often counterproductive, and just increasing the volume does not help people with hearing impairment understand better. Just basically speak clearly. Be concrete, be specific, and it's also a good idea to ask open-ended questions when you're having a discussion and an exchange with people, rather than always just asking sort of yes/no questions. Yes/no questions tend not to engage a person very much in the process, and the whole point here is to engage older adults in this planning effort. Using visual aids is always a good idea. It helps to clarify content, and people of all ages have different learning styles, and often, some people are more visual or more tactile. So it's good to have that available as you're interacting with someone rather than just talking with them. And finally, it's also a good idea at the end to verify that the person has followed along, has understood the information. And one of the ways of doing that is to just sort of ask them how they would use the information that you've been focusing on. Okay, next, Nancy. So meeting with older adults for preparedness planning, it's important to be flexible and to be accommodating. You can offer different types of venues. A person might prefer to meet in person, maybe over Zoom. We've all gotten very used to that, haven't we? FaceTime is another option for some folks. If you are meeting in person, make sure you offer to wear a mask. It may be a really good idea to be willing to meet more than once. If a person is somewhat more frail, a morning meeting might be an especially good idea. If a person seems to have gotten tired, or if there have been lots of questions and you haven't been able to get through all the information, it might be a good idea to reschedule a follow-up appointment. And if so, make sure that you make arrangements for that before you conclude the first meeting. And finally, you can always offer to include other people in the preparedness planning meeting. I mentioned earlier that people can certainly have preparedness teams, and that could include other family members, caregivers, neighbors, what have you. Okay, Nancy? So at this point, for purposes of discussing the personal emergency plan, I'm going to turn it back over to Nancy, who's going to take over here.
Thanks so much, Donna. That's such great information. And I really learned a lot working with you and developing some of this information and how best to work with our seniors. So one of the things we want to do is we want to ask some open-ended questions about people and how they're living. And this will help us as we're working through a plan with an older adult to identify things we need to focus on. So whether or not they have hearing problems that might prevent them from hearing a siren or a warning, which would mean they would need a neighbor to help them make sure that they had the information they needed should there be an emergency. What kind of news sources they have. This can also give you a clue about whether or not they're going to need additional information from neighbors in order to be situationally aware. What their mobility problems might be, whether they have specific medical equipment that they rely on. If they have caregivers or other services that might lend a hand in an emergency. And also, sensory wise, can they smell smoke? Do they have a good enough nose still that if there was smoke, would they be able to smell that smoke in the air? We're going to talk now just briefly about focusing on if you went to one of these neighbors with all this information in hand and you had an evac pack with you, kind of what it would look like to go through a personal planning session with a senior. So we're talking about, first of all, looking at the personal information, and you'd want to explain to them that this is helpful if for some reason they're incapacitated, if they're not feeling well, that a first responder would have this important information with them. If they have a longer medication list, you can certainly suggest to them that if they have that list, they could just attach it to it. They don't need to be writing all of this information down. And they might not want to go over this information with you. So you might suggest that you'd be happy to check in with them later about this information. And then, you could provide some accountability for them to actually do the task. And then you could check in with them and help them fill in the blanks if they've missed any information along the way. On the second page of this is that contact information. And so in addition to the contact information, this is a great opportunity for you to find out if they're signed up for SoCo Alert and Nixle if they have cell phones. So you can drop that information in and even help them sign up on the spot to make sure that if they do have a cell phone, they can get this information alerts on their cell phone, and they'll really appreciate that. And then also discussing other information, NOAA weather radios, websites that you like to get more information on. I know watch duties become very popular as well. So just the different things that you think they might find interesting to help them stay informed. And of course, if appropriate, offer to be one of their contacts on this. So somebody else local, and get your phone number down there, or somebody else that's their neighbor, so that they have a hyper local person that they could call if they need assistance in an emergency. Now, the go bag section might look a little bit overwhelming, as well as that shelter in place section. So it's good to focus on the things that they have around the house as well. So, everybody has some bottled water maybe around the house, or maybe they already have a flashlight. So, trying to pare this down so that it doesn't look so daunting, and offer assistance to help gather some of these supplies if it looks a little bit overwhelming for them. The other thing is you can discuss with them the really important things. So if they have life safety medication, maybe sussing out with them how they might get a few extra pills that they could keep those in their go bag and rotate them a couple of times a year so that they have that supply ready already in their go bag, stuff like that. And then, what types of small items that are precious to them that they might want to be able to pop into their go bag before they left. So having that on the list for them as well. So just trying to break it down into the things they might be most interested in discussing at that time. But then again, also offering to come back at another time and suggest that, we can go over the list later after you've gone through what you have at home. If you need help gathering those supplies, I'd be happy to help you with that after you've exhausted the resources you have. The shelter in place kit, again, identifying the items that they already have in their home, and strategies of getting some of the other items over time. So you don't need to get this whole list right now, but what would look good for you? Would it be good for you to maybe buy one extra can of goods once a week? And so you're slowly building this shelter in place supply, or this week you can buy this thing, and maybe next month when you get a check, you can buy these other things. So stressing that it's not something that has to be done overnight. It can be a project. A lot of people that are on the older spectrum also love to have a project because they don't have a lot of things to do. So making it a project also will help engage them and be interested in doing this. And explaining the importance of this shelter in place kit. As we know, it could be really important. For instance, at the beginning of a pandemic, everybody who had 7 days worth of supplies in their home did not have to go to the grocery store immediately when it was announced and expose themselves to everybody in the grocery store, which is what we were calling the shelter in place for in the first place. So having those supplies on hand is going to be important, and you can help them see the importance of that. And then the evacuation section, which we know is also a very scary thing, especially for people who are low on resources and may not have a plan A or a plan B and not really sure how to devise that. So immediately being able to offer that the COPE group that they are in the neighborhood of has resources for them to help back them up, and that, if they are going to need help in an evacuation, that, that there's a number of different neighbors that you can put them in touch with and work with to try to help become part of their plan A or their plan B if their plan A falls through. Also, how they're going to get that warning and what their evacuation zone is. So again, because in this pack, they do have a Know Your Zone sticker, you'll be able to look up their zone for them and write it right in there for them, so they know that when they're getting this information, that there's an evacuation, whether or not it's their zone that they're in or not. So these are all really important things. And then also in that evac pack is the checklist and the evacuation information. So these, again, a lot of these things that are things that you can do if you have more than 1 hour, many seniors are going to be at a loss of whether of doing some of these things. So is there someone in the neighborhood who can help them make sure their hose is hooked up? Is their neighbor already going to be leaving a ladder out? So don't worry about the ladder, because your next door neighbor has a ladder they're going to be leaving out. So if firemen show up, they can help you. They can help your house by using the ladder that's being left next door. So, just trying to make these things easy. And then, of course, the evacuation tag and what they might do with that evacuation tag if they're going to evacuate. One more thing that's in that pack, of course, is the public safety power shutoff. Now, if you're talking to a senior who does drive, suggesting to them about being sure to leave their car out of the garage if there's a red flag warning, some of those things, this is a good time to talk about learning how to open your garage door. So not suggesting that you would go through all of these things at once with somebody, but these are all great conversation points depending on who you're talking to and the things they tell you they're concerned about. These are all places that you can segue into good conversations and track changes and give them confidence that they have a community with them and behind them that can help support them should there be a disaster. So we're going to now switch back to Donna, who's going to talk about wrapping up the meeting.
Okay. Yeah, okay, that's great. So we mentioned earlier that it's a really good idea to sort of verify that the person has kind of understood all the information that that you've been discussing. So this is one of the reasons why sort of engaging in this kind of wrap-up summary conversation is a good idea. And the purpose is to reinforce important points and to just ascertain that the person has sort of followed and learned some of the important things that you've been talking about. And so if you're going to have a conversation with someone, perhaps it might begin something like this. You could say, something like, we've covered a lot of material today, and I'm sure that you're going to want to go over all the good stuff and the items in the evac pack when you have a little more time and when you can do that on your own. And you also may have some questions. And if you do have questions that occur to you after I've left, then, I'd certainly like to have you call me. At this point, you might give the person the card with your name on it and your phone number or a piece of paper or whatever that they could have. Or as Nancy had said earlier, you could write that down in some of the personal information area of the evac pack so that they have it accessible to them. And then you might go on to say something like, of all the things that we talked about today, what do you think are the most important things for you to do in an emergency situation? And then really listen, to what they have to say. And you can use, prompts, and you can clarify as necessary. And for example, if a person doesn't mention the go bag, then maybe you might say something like, the go bag has been, a really important part of my own, emergency preparedness. And I've started keeping it in my spare bedroom, so it's always ready to go. And I refurbish it and I kind of go over it every now and then to make sure it has in it the items that I know are going to be important. Something like that, right? Just to kind of give them prompts and go over and reinforce the things that that are important and that you think, given their own particular situation in particular, that you want to reinforce. Okay, Nancy, next. And as we've said here, if you haven't gotten through everything that you think is important to convey, or if the person has had a lot of questions and so it's taken a while to go through the meeting, or if the person seems like they have gotten a little tired and are kind of ready to wrap up the meeting, then see if a follow-up would be possible and desirable. We talked about that earlier when we talked about communication. If it does seem desirable to have a follow-up meeting, then be sure to establish the day, time, and place, and ask if the person would like to have anybody else present. Again, we mentioned earlier the fact that some people may have sort of emergency preparedness teams, and there may be other people that they'd like to invite to that, a neighbor, family member, caregiver, whomever. And make sure, if that's the case, that you know how to get a hold of those individuals and make sure that you that you have it worked out, you know, how they're going to be contacted and who's going to do that. You also could ask where the person might want to keep their evac pack that you've been going through. And if they'd like to hang it somewhere and would like some help from you to hang it in an accessible place, then you can certainly offer to do that. And again, just make sure that the person knows how to contact you for follow-up questions. Okay, and so the end result of all of this is to jointly develop with the older person a personalized preparedness plan that would include the go bag, the evac plan, phone numbers, resources, assisting them with signups for warnings. And as we've said earlier, the older person really has to be invested in this plan. They have to be able to implement it effectively in an emergency when basically they will more or less be on their own. They will have resources to call and to contact, but there are a lot of things that they will have to do on their own should an emergency happen. And as we all know, having a plan can reduce the stress and the anxiety that people feel in emergencies. And we think and hope that that will lead to safer and better outcomes. So that's it. I think that concludes our presentation. So I want to shoot it back to Priscilla at this point.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you for that great presentation. I'm just thinking as you go through all of that, the richness of the information that's specific to older adults, but just how much it can be generalized to anybody that you're working with. It just kind of helps me feel reassured when I go and approach somebody that I really want to engage in this preparedness information, that it's really all about trying to remember that they have agency, that we don't need to solve all their problems, but help engage them in the process, and it can happen over time. It doesn't happen just like that, but we can help them get started. So thank you for that. All right, what I'd like to do now is go ahead and
I'm sorry, Priscilla, I think Donna Riley had a question that you might want to take.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If you don't mind,
Yeah, go for
should
it.
I wait till later?
No, go for it.
Okay, great. Both of you, thank you so very much for this evac pack that you mentioned, Nancy. Is that available digitally? Priscilla mentioned all the pieces and parts are around, but you have them all together.
Right, and you can get an evac pack at any of the Sonoma County libraries. And if you would like a bunch of them for your community, we can arrange a time and I can transfer you 10, 20, 30, 40, whatever you need. So you can just reach out to me via email and we can hook up and get you as many as you need, and whether you need English or Spanish.
Okay, and I'm fairly new, so is your email address on our roster of COPE people?
I don't know, but I'll pop it in the chat right now just so you'll have it convenient.
Okay, that'd be great. The second thing is, Donna, that was a really informative information about the seniors. And I'm wondering, has anyone in the COPE organization or you addressed this issue or provided this kind of information to the Senior Advisory Commission or Center, the Senior Center, the Senior Advisory Commission here in Healdsburg?
This particular presentation has sort of been our maiden voyage here, okay? So we haven't done the presentation per se to anyone else. I know that Priscilla and Diane and maybe Diana as well have been reaching out to folks who deal with seniors, but in the community, but I'll ask, any or all of them, to respond more specifically.
Okay, well, even better. My husband's commissioner on the Senior Advisory Commission, and I know he'd be thrilled to have the opportunity to talk to you about this. It's really important to them, and you're totally lined up and ready to go. So,
Okay,
thank you.
sure. I mean, I'm sure we'd all be, delighted to do that.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's great.
Donna,
Thank
that's
you.
exactly the connection we want to make. So just shoot me an email and connect us and we'll make that happen. In
That's
fact,
great.
we have a meeting coming up and maybe he can join us for our meeting.
He'd be happy.
Great.
Great. Thank
Thanks,
you very
Donna.
much.
Yeah. And hey, Nancy Brown, are those packs, I may have missed it because I've been getting some texts and stuff, but are those packs still available at the libraries or no?
Yes, all the Sonoma
Okay.
County branches have them in English and in Spanish. So if you just need one, that's your quickest, easy button to push. And then each of these items that are in those packs are also on our website and you can download them. They're just not all gathered together. You don't get the cool little folder, blah, blah. But you can download that personal plan. You can download the evacuation timeline sheet. All that's available for you to print from home as well on our website, socoemergency.org.
Great, thank you. And I put that in the chat for folks. And Linda.
Hello, I was recently incorporated into the Cloverdale Senior Center, and I'm the newest member of the board of directors there. Part of the reason why I took that assignment on was just with the thought of being able to do something with that group in a way that would be not just community-based, well, but the community of Cloverdale, not just neighborhood-based. So I'm very open and interested in pursuing the notion of being able to, I'm almost seeing this as a weekly class that could happen for a few weeks where people could discuss it and then go and get their materials and come back, so that it would be more. There, 27% of Cloverdale is elderly people. So, and we don't have the transportation. So there's a lot of opportunity, I think, and I just wanted to make that offer.
We love it. We love
And
it.
I think
Linda.
the evac packs are at the Cloverdale Senior Center also. They have been, if they're not out, they have them there as well.
I will double check. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Linda, and we will connect with you as well. Wow, see, this is what's amazing about our community, right? We have all these people that are connected and are reaching out to do this work. So I'm so glad that this resonated with a number of you. I'm gonna interrupt our rhythm that we have going on for the seniors just because we have our fire marshal with us now. So I want to be able to turn it over to our county fire marshal. If I can find you, Steve, just a second. You're on the phone, I know.
Yes.
So there you are. Great,
Yeah.
Thank you. So Steve, what I would love for you to do, so just so everybody else knows, he's the new guy in a new and old guy at the same time. He's been in the department for quite some time and people know and love Steve's work. Now he's the boss guy. Some of you may have known Chief Williams who moved on and Steve took over that position. So we're excited to have him in this new position, relatively new. And want to really hear from you, Steve, about what does the Division of Prevention do? And, you know, as COPE leaders, how might we interact with you? What do you, what kind of services are offered that we should be tapping into that maybe we haven't been tapping into as well as we should be? And how can we partner with you to make our community safer? So I'll start with that as kind of the premise for us talking today.
Sure. So thank you, everybody, for allowing me to speak with you today. Yes, my name is Steve Masurchak. I've coming up on 20 years with the county. Started with the organization as just a fire inspector and have been able to work my way up to the fire marshal level. I did replace James Williams in April. And, part of our job in fire prevention is our department went through a unique change over the last couple of years. We used to be our own organization as part of consolidations with many of the fire agencies in Sonoma County. Part of our roles and responsibilities have changed. And so we primarily focus on, community risk reduction type stuff, fire prevention, fire code enforcement. We run the CHIPPR program. We try to get many grants, which the Fitch Mountain Association and your COOP program is also being very supportive to us in running within the area there in Fitch Mountain, Sodiome type thing. And we also work very closely with all the fire districts to try to have a really good working relationship to not only for them to support us in our mission, which is development and new construction, but for us to also support them in their mission, which is providing operational and fire prevention support for what they do within their jurisdictional boundaries. And so what I'm currently involved in right now, particularly in the area of this COOP organization, is that there are many grants that the county has obtained that has to do with vegetation management, defensible space, structural hardening. The upcoming BRIC grant for building and resilience is something that was awarded at the federal level, and we have not been fully awarded it down to the state and local level yet, but that is a big accomplishment. And a lot of these grants are focused on strategic areas in the county for the bigger picture, which we hope later on down the road, which is a network of support for all the different areas in Sonoma County instead of just elected specific jurisdictional areas. So it's a little complicated. I'm still learning it. It's a little bit different from the realm of responsibilities I've always been involved with, which was many hazmat enforcement, hazmat code, and fire code and stuff like that. And so when I took over, one of my opportunities was to work with the local fire districts and work within the communities of the grant. And so what I know right now is that the availabilities of grants is defensible space, and then structural hardening. That comes at like a cost reimbursement. So we have assessments going on, which a lot of people in the Fitch Mountain area have participated in. And those assessments allow for the future funding that will be available, part of what I call phase 1 and phase 2. And phase 1 deals with getting some cost reimbursement to property owners for doing defensible space. And then the phase 2 would be cost reimbursement to property owners for structural hardening. What does that mean? Well, it means that after the assessment, you engage or enter into a contract with the county. You utilize one of their approved contractors, and those contractors perform the service, and then you get reimbursed for the work that was done. And so it's creating this nice environment where you're getting some defensible space done, which is encouraging because money's tight, and it's providing an opportunity to get reimbursed for that. And it's kind of like a 75% reimbursement. So a little bit of upfront cost to the property owner, but a reimbursement on the end of the county level. And then we're also doing project-based stuff, which is just things that we think are right for the community. And so working with Northern Sonoma County Fire District, and also the city of Healdsburg, who has a heavy part within their ag and open space. You guys see right now, we're doing a lot of work in conjunction with getting things set up for goat grazing. We hosted a community meeting a couple of months ago that talked about goat grazing and bringing in equipment to do some mastication work, and then maybe later on down the road some prescribed burning, and then there's some fuels crew work that are going on in the same area. So it's creating this nice environment to get the Fitch Mountain area, along with these resources available to other communities. And the money's there, and if it's for the right project and it can be funded properly, we are there to support it. And that's kind of our mission now.
Great, Steve. I know I've got a hand up, and there's also a question in the chat. Dan Grout is asking, could you describe what is called federal BRIC grants? What did you mean by that?
Uh, the BRIC grant is something I'm still learning about. This was money that had to do with building and infrastructure resiliency. So it's a multi-phase, multi-project type of situation. It's focused on 3 target areas in the county. Some of it is there, I believe, in the Fitch Mountain area. Some is focused in the Rancho Adobe Fire District, and then a lot of it is encompassing the new Sonoma County Fire District. It has to do with more for vegetation management, structural hardening, building, fuel breaks and fire roads and shaded fuel breaks. And we're really bringing in ecologists and people that know how to do prescribed burning and stuff like that. So it's a very big functioning grant at the county level with incorporation of assistance from the local fire districts for support for community and outreach, and then also funding it at the property owner level.
Okay, great. Shunya, you had a question?
Hi, thank you. Yes, did you say that you arranged for someone to come to the individual homeowner's site to assess what grants would work for them? Did I hear that correctly? And how do we contact you for that?
Yes, so there's a link on our website. It's called Wildfire Adaptive. If you're within the target areas and you're eligible, you could punch in your parcel number of your address, and it will tell you if you're within the area that the grant is providing service to. If you haven't been reached out to, and this is a problem that we've run into, is that some of the tax records at the county level to mailing addresses haven't been lining up. So we've gotten a lot of return to sender mailers that we've sent out. So if you feel that you would want the service, you could reach out on Wildfire Adaptive, put in a request for service. The map will tell you if you're part of the target area, and if so, then you will be able to schedule that appointment with one of our inspectors, and they will come out and do the initial assessment with the property owner. And then they could talk to you about what would need to be done and what to be concerned about during the assessments.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm going to put that link in the chat here. So it's also called SoCo Adapts.
Yeah, and I believe Marshall put it into the chat area. So I think he
He beat me
provided the
to
link
it.
for me. Yeah, so thank you,
Yeah.
Marshall.
Yeah, great.
At least
Any-
we agree. Same link we both posted, so it's
Steve, just to remind you that these are people from all over northern Sonoma County. So we have Cloverdale, Mill Creek, just kind of Geyserville, from all over the place. So one of the questions that we had was, are the grant programs only for unincorporated areas of the county?
I believe so. I believe what we applied for is just for the unincorporated areas of the county. And again, if you go to our website and you punch your address in, it will tell you what your address is applicable for within those grants. And again, I'm sorry, I'm still learning all this stuff as I've been moving along, but I know our website is very interactive, and it provides you all the useful information you need to figure out if your parcel or your property address is subject to this additional help.
Great. And I know you mentioned the CHIPPR program, and a number of our COPE communities have done CHIPPR days. As you know, Fitch Mountain has. I know Mill Creek has done it in the past. I'm trying to think of others. I think Diane Urban, your community, has done it in the past as well. Any updates on the CHIPPR program? I know that it gets oversubscribed at times. Yeah.
Well, to be honest with you, the applications we receive, they have their ups and downs, and it's all based on what type of outreach we would do. We do a lot of outreach. Sometimes we get more interest than not. the best bang for the buck that we have seen is generally these community projects. They actually are the most fun for us. They're the most consistent. We have a project coordinator. We have a project coordinator that does a lot of the work for us at the community level. And so the nice thing about that is, we just pick a date that we're going to do the work. And then with that date that we're doing the work, we can get 30, 40 parcels done or properties done within a week's time. And the more community projects we do within these fire safe or COOP organizations, the less material we're doing over time. So we actually get more property participation. And so with that, for example, Forestville, great organization to work with, very detailed. They provide us a map. They provide us pictures. They mark out the piles. It gets better and better every year. Fire Safe Occidental, we do multiple ones with them every year. We work with Pat for Fire Safe Fitch there. We also take the opportunity to and also incorporate Marshall's group, and they help us out tremendously with doing a lot of chipping in what we call Zone 6 fire area. So not only are they helping us out with some of these community projects, but they're also helping us out with the chipper applications. And so it's a great opportunity for us to encourage defensible space, reducing fuels, but also allowing, the fire districts that are providing support to their specific communities to have an active involvement. They get to participate, and it's a win-win for all of us.
Great, thanks, Steve. It looks like Mr. Abercrombie does have a question for you or a comment.
Well, yeah, actually one of each. First of all, the working with Steve on community project like a Chipper Day has been fantastic. We've done it a couple years in a row. We did develop a little sort of protocol or cheat sheet or lessons learned document that I think you can find at the NOSOCO COPE website, because it's not just working with Steve. You can expand your chipper day to include chipping materials and disposing of material that the county just can't take. Oleanders, arundo, things like that. You can get dumpsters from Recology, and they will waive the fees, which can be enormous, to get rid of other material and make it a real community cleanup. All that information and the people to contact and email addresses and stuff is in that protocol that Priscilla has put out at the NOSOCO website. And then Steve, the question, just because I think a lot of us in the unincorporated areas are confused, what responsibility does the fire prevention and hazardous materials have for vegetation management along the road? Is that anything you guys are responsible for? Is that TPW? How's that work? Because you've been involved with us when we've used the Geyserville Fuels crew, but I wasn't sure how that worked together.
Yeah, good question. Working with TPW is sometimes a great experience, and sometimes doesn't go the way that we typically want it to do. And they have specific issues that they have to deal with. They're trying to reduce fuels in the right of way, but then they're also trying to determine really where is that right of way. And sometimes the scope of their work is anything from 4 feet to sometimes 10 feet. They're dealing with a lot of easements. They're dealing with property lines. They're dealing with, well, who owns the tree? Who does it belong to? And for us, that's why it's nice to be able to come in there and work with the property owner specific. The TPW doesn't have any problem with us coming in there and doing some chipping work and fuel reduction work, but what they're heavily concerned about is the safety to the community using the public right of way. And they don't want, any trees or limbs or debris left in the roadway that can cause damage to cars or cause accidents. And so I see heavily from a safety component for vehicle usage and people walking. But for a fire side, it's really having that relationship with the property owners and just realizing that some of the property owners have the same amount of responsibility as the county does on the public right of ways. Because a lot of the properties like in Fitch Mountain, their property lines are in the public right of way. And so that's where all these hesitations about who's going to do what. And for us, just being a fire prevention division, we just want to do the right thing. And so if people are in there to do the right thing with us, we're going to come right behind them and do the chipping work to clean it up, without having to rely on TPW, who does want to do the right thing, but they're always worried about the negative impacts that could occur about property rights and property damage and so on. So we have a little bit different leniencies in our program.
So
Thanks,
I
Steve.
just want to reiterate how helpful it is to have our COPE programs where we have relationships with our neighbors and we can leverage those relationships to help these programs be successful. So, you know, we have a form that we can use to get property owners to sign off. We did this on Fitch Mountain. We've done this in Mill Creek and in Frost Valley and other places, so that we can go further than the 10 feet if we want to in some of these undeveloped properties, et cetera. So that's why it's so important to have Steve here today, so that you all have this connection and understand what programs are available to you through the county. We all want to reduce our fire risk, and so it's really important for us to tap into these available opportunities. And the county has gotten a lot more grants now, as Steve has said, and other ways that we can tap in.
And one thing I want to bring up is what's great about your guys' community is also, for us, you know, we're dealing with a lot of undeveloped properties where we have a county ordinance that applies. It only allows us to do so much work on unapproved parcels as it relates to neighboring structures and property line clearance and roadways and such. But what we are battling against is a lot of these undeveloped properties. We don't know who the owner is anymore. There's been a lot of transition, whether there was a death in the family or property was handed over in a trust. And we send out mailers, we try to contact somebody. Taxes are going unpaid. There's no record of a person to contact. It may lie in an LLC sometimes. And so it's very difficult for us to try to reach out to those individual property owners to say, hey, for example, Linda Collister's, you know, got the group of goats up there and we wanted to extend the goats into some of those undeveloped properties. We would love to get permission first, but sometimes we're debate on, well, is this in the benefits of fuel reduction and it's an undeveloped property? Can we just let the goats kind of measly roam on there, and who's really going to get upset with us? Probably nobody, because it's doing a really good job in making a, you know, an effective use of what we have for time and trying to track down property owners. But there is a cost to the work that we have to do, and we do have to be respectful and mindful of who owns what and what they may or may not want on their property for whatever reason. And so any help that we can get for knowing who really the true owners of some of these undeveloped properties are and being able to reach out to them, whether it's just for engagement and understanding and education, or maybe even at the enforcement level, because we may have to go that route. And also give them an opportunity to do good on the enforcement level. So that was something that I brought up at the last meeting when we were up in the forget the name of the place, but the Villa, the Villa Chandelier, when we had the community meeting up there. Was it's really important for us to know who we're working with, and we just want to be out there to do the best thing and the right thing for everybody.
All right. Any other questions from our community leaders? All right. Thank you, Steve. Any closing thoughts?
Just again, thank you very much. We enjoy working with all of you. We enjoy working with Marshall's group. You guys are going to be in good hands soon. And we like working with Linda. Everybody has a real active role and participation and really wants to do the right thing. And that's what we want to continue to support.
Great. Thank you so much. And Steve, what am I supposed to call you? Am I supposed to call you chief or fire marshal, or what's your official title?
Actually, thank you for asking. I appreciate, I like just being called the fire marshal. It's not marshal like Marshal Turberville, but
Yeah.
fire marshal is fine. You know, this is not a chief level position. My old boss was at a chief level. He continued that on as we went through the transition in the organization. But in no way do I consider myself a fire chief. It's more, I do the duties of a fire marshal. So, but you can call me Steve too. Either one works great.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. I always, out of respect, like to make sure that I call people by their proper title, especially when I introduce them. So thank you for that.
Thanks, Chief.
All right. We will let you go, Steve. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And
Anytime.
good luck in your new job.
Thank you.
Right. All right. Thanks, everyone. You know, I'm looking at the time and I'm wondering, Nancy and Donna and Diana, should we just not do breakouts? I'm kind of feeling like that, but I want to hear from
Agreed.
you guys. Agreed? Okay. All right. Well, we have these wonderful case studies. Should I drop them in the chat so that people can at least see what they are, and maybe that'll kind of help them think about working with folks and what that might be like? I'll do that. Does anybody else have any closing remarks?
Diane does.
Well, Diane, give it to us.
Okay, well, just one suggestion we talked about and you know, the whole premise of you know, this great work that Nancy and Donna did is that we may have people within our COPE neighborhoods that we just haven't been in touch with yet because, you know, they fell into one of these categories of seniors that, you know, maybe weren't able to make it to one of our meetings and different things. And one strategy that's worked in a number of different communities is having people pair up, you know, or maybe 3 people. It's frequently women, and having at least one of them have a car and be mobile. And then they decide as a group, we're gonna do this together. Whatever we do, we're gonna go together. And Nancy hit on something that was learning to me, which is sometimes people don't want to get into these conversations or make a plan because they're afraid there isn't a good answer. And in fact, you know, if people put their heads together and especially maybe think about this buddy system or a 3-person team, there will be a good answer. And so those were some things that came out of some of our earlier discussions that I just wanted to share with the broader group.
Thank you. That was lovely.
Priscilla?
Yeah.
We had talked about cutting out the senior presentation video so we can give it to our neighborhood leaders. We're still planning on doing that?
Yeah, I was hoping that Jeff, that maybe your video person would be able to do that. Do you still have that video person?
She's graduated and moved on to real life.
Oh, wow.
But I will try to work on it myself.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. Or if anybody else has those skills, let us know.
I can help
Dan?
you, Jeff, if you need.
I certainly don't have those skills. I was just about to say, as a parting comment, the recent spate of fires that occurred all around our new rental and our former home up in Mill Creek last week had me relearning quickly all my GroupMe skills in terms of cutting and pasting. And who should I would just say, you know, if it's a quiet week, you know, try practicing those things when you're not on a high stress level event, and, you know, when we're not in a red flag, and you can safely test your communication and copy skills with, you know, a friend or partner as opposed to the whole community. But anyway, I thought I was an old hat at that, and with enough adrenaline in my system, I kind of spaced on how exactly to get the message out to everybody. So
Dan, at some point, could you do for the whole group, like a little 5 or 10 minute GroupMe skills or something? I'm not sure I can do all that.
I'd be the first one to sign up for that. I think I can get by, but I'm a little don't have quite enough bandwidth to put that together, but I'll put it on my list.
You know, that would be something we could do maybe in our next meeting, is kind of look at that. I did try to put together a video on how to start a group me and, you know, start a group on group me and how to add people and all of that. But we can put that on our list of things we'd like to do. Yeah. Okay. All right. Anything else that topic wise that people want to have at our next meeting? How would you guys feel about me doing a smoke ready program next month? Yeah, okay, I'll do that. I've got that ready to go. And I will be adding it to the website as well so that people can access a direct link to Purple Air and that kind of thing from our website. So that's in my dream of getting that done in the next month. All right, well, as usual, it's great to see your faces in your little boxes and all your various backgrounds. And again, I have to say that I am truly amazed each time that we get together about the depth of talent that we have amongst us and how many people have you know, skills and experience that they offer the group. And Diana Borges, I heard you say that you might be able to do that video editing, am I right?
Yeah, I just was texting Jeff, so I'll cut it out and he might add an image to it. So well, between us, we'll get it done.
Wonderful. See, that's what I mean. People that are willing to get it done. And thank you very much for that. I really appreciate it. And again, great to see you all. And we look forward to seeing you on Get This Marshall Tuberville, November 17th, an important day to he and I. And we look forward to seeing your faces then. And then maybe in December, we can get together. That's my hope, that we can be in person in December. You never know. We'll hold that thought. All right. Take care, everyone. See you next month. Oh, Pat Abercrombie. Oh, I thought you were just waving goodbye.
Just
All
waving
right.
goodbye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Take
Bye-bye.
care.